Kia ora koutou. Welcome to this chit chat where we are focusing on intervention teacher training and the difference that intervention teacher training makes. This is a chit chat that I have been wanting to bring to everybody for quite some time. There is some incredible mahi happening right across the motu here in Aotearoa, New Zealand. And today I am joined by three very, very passionate and dedicated educators, Karen McMillan, Bec Heeley, and Michelle Roberts. Thank you so much, ladies, for giving up some of your time and joining me, Carla McNeil, as we discuss what you've learnt and what your experience has been in implementing evidence-based literacy intervention. I'm going to come to you first, Karen, and ask you just to introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about where you're from and what your sort of main course of work is in your kura.
Kia ora koutou. My name's Karen McMillan and I am a DP at Waterloo School in Lower Hutt. I undertook the LMIT training with the first cohort that went through, so completed that in 2024. And as part of my role, I pick up intervention and I also support my team with their structured literacy for Tier 2 and Tier 1. So I'm really excited to be here and I'll pass you on to Bec.
Kia ora koutou. I'm Bec Heeley. I am a teacher at Shotover Primary School. This year I have a bit of a mixed role in that I'm a classroom teacher and I am also responsible for leading a team for early literacy interventions. I did the LMIT training in January of 2024 and loved it, and we are utilising it to its full value here at our school, and also very excited to be here.
Cool, thanks, Bec. Kia ora, Michelle.
Kia ora. As mentioned, I'm Michelle Roberts. I'm working under the umbrella of a learning support coordinator at Southland Boys High School in Invercargill. We're in our junior syndicate year 7 and 8 just cutting our teeth on structured literacy, so they've been working really hard developing their approach to spelling. And I completed my LMIT training last year. And it's been an eye-opener and really exciting, so it's great to be here as well.
Awesome. Thank you, ladies. Let's go to thinking about, since you've completed your training, how would you describe your understanding of dyslexia and the learning to read process has actually changed? And I'm really keen to know how that's influenced your teaching. So anybody can jump in to answer this question. Who would like to get started? Oh, everybody's keen to go. Let's go to you, Bec.
When I reflect on the LMIT training, like the word that springs to mind for me is deeper. So I got a deeper understanding of how the brain learns how to read. I got a deeper understanding of what dyslexia is and how we can support our dyslexic students. I got a deeper understanding of the assessment tools that we can use. And in particular, I got a deeper understanding of explicit instruction. And that's probably the component that has influenced my teaching the most, I think. I've found that the explicit instruction has kind of spread its way out into all other curriculum areas. And, I use explicit instruction in maths and I use it in writing, and it's just kind of flown out. So that's probably the area that has influenced my teacher the most, I would say.
That's amazing, Bec. And are you finding that as your teaching practice is more explicit, and I'm going to say it's more fluid because you get that sort of reciprocity between you and the students, what are you noticing from your students that you might not have seen before you taught in that way?
What we've noticed, because we team teach, so what we've noticed across our team is that the kids are more able to verbalize what they're learning and use the vocabulary that we're using. So that's been a really big thing that we've noticed. And we've worked really hard on active participation. And that's a big thing that we've noticed as well, is that we're getting more of the kids being involved in what we're learning.
Amazing. Awesome. Let's come to you, Karen, on how your understanding of dyslexia and the reading process has changed over time.
Yeah, so I guess before I did my limit training, I thought I was doing a pretty good job with using a different variety of literacy popular methods. But since then, I've really come to understand that explicit, systematic, cumulative instruction is so important, and just that link to the brain as well and the neuroscience behind it. That's really fascinated me about how different parts of the brain can actually be rewired, and that's what's happening for our students. But it has to be done in a way that is, is basically the structured literacy approach, especially that cumulative nature. I've also felt like since the training, I've deepened my own knowledge, like Bec said, of lots of aspects of learning how to read. And that's been a big thing. Also, I've also found that becoming aware that there is a bit of a spectrum of dyslexia with our students, and some of our students mask things really well. But through deep diagnostic assessment and things, you actually get to learn how your students are ticking and what's working for them, and how you can shine a light on their strengths instead of them always feeling quite negative about literacy. That's been a big part of my journey with Limit.
Thank you for raising that piece around, particularly around that dyslexia occurs on a spectrum. I often say, from mild to severe or profound. But the piece that you said about the diagnostic assessments is really interesting too. And I think that for myself, when I was doing some of my early learning years and years and years ago, was around the importance of having those right diagnostic tools so that you can identify where your students are. And we'll come back and talk a little bit about that some more. Michelle, is there anything that you wanted to add in terms of your understanding?
Definitely agree with what both the other ladies have said here. It's that real, again, that good word use of the depth of understanding, that the brains all still learn to read, that while some of our students have these reading challenges, that their brain's still going to go the same way. And as teachers, we're getting to hone in on our practice and make those connections with that phonological bit and the orthographic bit and the meaning bit and all of that there. It's doing that, and it's honing the practice and honing your understanding. But it's also, for me, it's really increased how I'm not scared to raise concerns if I notice a student. Like, you sometimes sit there and, 5 years ago, 10 years ago, oh, it's just a boy, or it's just this. And now it's like, well, it's not just. If there's a reason that I'm noticing someone now, there's a reason, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so with those diagnostics and that, more honed practice, I guess, where, meeting the kids' needs better.
That's amazing, and gives me goosebumps when you say that. You must feel so much more empowered, through your analysis of those diagnostic assessments, to be able to go and have those conversations based on quality assessment findings that, like you said, this is not about whether he's ready or he's a boy or she's a girl or what their home or socioeconomic circumstances are like. This is actually just like, this is how this person is presenting in terms of their literacy acquisition, and in relation to what I now know is real quality teaching. Because I think I could speak for all of you when I say, you sort of touched on it earlier, Karen. We all thought we were doing a good job. My words, not yours, Karen, but you pretty much were saying, you had a whole lot of different programs in play. You had a whole lot of different approaches to intervention. This just feels like a giant cleansing with a mega dose of knowledge and practice. Would you agree?
Really.
So when we think about our children who are dyslexic, and when I say our children who are dyslexic, I'm not just talking about those who have a diagnosis. I'm talking about those that we are pretty confident, although we're not qualified to diagnose, that we're confident they're not responding at the same rate to our instruction. The progress is slower, it's laboured, and there might be other things going on. I was really interested to know if there are any specific practices or routines that you've found through what you've been learning in your training, and then as you've moved into working more so in intervention, that have really made a difference to those students that would be valuable for others to know about. I'm going to come to you first this time, Bec.
Obviously, with my role, one of the biggest things we've done this year is introduce early literacy interventions. So that means that this year we've started with interventions for our year ones. So we read over and over and over again how important it is to capture these children early, how that sometimes this can prevent them from falling behind to the very end of the spectrum where we're trying to keep how they see themselves as a learner intact. And so, because we started with year ones, and some of these children, it was their first day at school at the beginning of the year. So we started our interventions at the phonological level and the alphabetic principle level. And that's what we've been working on with our year ones for this year. And we've seen some really good progress for these kids. We're quite pleased. But the biggest thing about this is that we know that regardless, as you said, with a diagnosis of dyslexia, we know that we're capturing these children and we're giving them the support right at the very beginning, so that hopefully they keep how they see themselves as a learner intact.
Can you tell us a little bit, Bec, about, are they having that support in the classroom? Are they having that support out of the classroom? How have you sort of organised that?
So at the beginning of the year, we used, because we do your foundation literacy assessment with every child that starts at Shotover Primary School, so in their first year of school. So we used that to assess who we were going to provide support to, and we've done it in small groups. They are not kind of pulled out of the classroom. I guess they are maybe pulled out a little bit, but it's within the classroom. But there's a small group of 3 or 4 students.
Yeah.
And we have a lesson plan that some learning assistants are implementing. And it's kind of evolved over the year as their skills have progressed. Yeah.
That's awesome. Thank you for sharing that. What about you, Karen?
Similar to what Bec has said, but if I talk about some of the practices and routines that I'm doing within my lesson.
That would be great.
So I guess the first thing I think about is the environment that we're in, and I make sure that I've got my window shade down, that I've got a nice quiet area, and everything's all sorted to avoid distraction, because some of my students have other diagnoses alongside them, so keeping them engaged and focused on the lesson is really important. We also have some of our tier 2 intervention with our teaching assistants, like Bec said, and those are in small groups, and we also use the foundation skills assessment. So when they get to the tier 3, we've got 3 of us that are LMIT trained, and we work with one-to-one or one-to-two students. And one of the adaptations that I've kind of made from the true pure LMIT lesson sequence has been, I've broken it into 2 parts. So instead of having a 60-minute session, which for some of my kids was like the cognitive overload was very apparent, I've split it up a little bit, just to keep them engaged. Beginning of the lesson, I'll always do a bit of phonological awareness with the 1-minute David Kilpatrick activities. And I just think it's so important that they feel so confident when they're working with you, and that relationship that you build one-on-one with that student. Some of the time I've spent going and sort of touching base with them in their classroom, because of course I withdraw them. And so that building relationships been really important, as has the communication with their whānau as well. So that's been an important part of the routine, if you like, of the intervention that we've been doing here.
That's awesome. You'll be really pleased to know, Karen, that lesson structure, the longer lesson structure, has actually now been broken up and is about to be released in a couple of different scenarios. Well, it's been trialled. If you follow the case study of little Hugo's literacy journey, which Ange has been sharing. Yeah. Michelle, what's your experience been in terms of any specific practices or routines that you've been implementing?
Well, I feel like we're possibly a wee bit not dragging the chain, but a wee bit behind the 8 ball with our solid intervention, because we've been really building that base around spelling. So what I thought was going to happen this year in terms of intervention has actually not quite been that. It's been more supporting our year 7 8s as they actually start their approach to spelling. So it's been quite an experience actually seeing what it looks like right from the very start again, and knowing where I'd come from to where I was, particularly after my training, to actually trying to support people that are just beginning. So that's been a real eye-opener. And every time I think about this, I think go as fast as you can, but as slow as you must. And that, to be honest, it's slower than I thought it would be. But then we're dealing with, there's 13 teachers in that syndicate, and it's all new for them. We've got some passionate drivers in there, which is really cool because you need that. But in terms of actual practice, we've been doing some observations and going through the lessons, and it's streamlining that explicit practice. It's getting that structure in place. It was really exciting recently, towards the end of last term, actually. I was invited into the science department at our school, and they were saying, we're hearing all about this structured literacy, and, what can we do? And that was really neat. So
wow, that's a great invitation.
It was so cool. It was really cool. And we actually just looked at a bit of vocabulary instruction, but it was using, what we'd already learned. And it was neat. And they're like, that makes so much sense. And to get that consistency and get that exposure to vocab to support all of our learners, not just our dyslexic profile kids. So it's intervention in its purest form. We're still developing that. But as we've learned, you can't intervene your way out of a tier 1 problem, right? And it's not a tier 1 problem we had. We just needed to build our tier 1, which I think they're doing an amazing job, actually.
I actually just need to stop here, and we need to take a moment and applaud you for the pathway you've chosen to go down to influence and impact others in that tier 1 instructional place, Michelle. It would be very easy for you to complete your training and go off and just, intervene and set up yourself in a 1-to-1 or 1-to-2 situation. But what you shared with us around how you're using that knowledge and experience to go and influence the improvement of the quality of the tier 1 instruction is just congratulations. That is amazing, because we know, like you just said, you can't intervene your way out of that. And we know that if you are able to spend, as much as it might feel slow for you right now, I think we've all been and worked in schools where we've sat in that tier 1 space learning for such a long, long, long time, right? So, well done. That's really great to hear about the difference that you're working on there. And it's actually a beautiful segue into the next thing that I wanted to talk about, which is the alignment of tier 1, tier 2, and tier 3 instruction, or you might say classroom-based instruction, small group instruction, and more of that sort of individualized or 1-to-2 instruction that Bec and Karen were talking about they're doing in their work. It's been a career-long dream of mine to see in New Zealand and to influence the implementation of alignment of the teaching practice between these tiers of instruction. And that's because my own personal and professional experience was, my son was taught in a classroom one way and then would go into intervention, and it would be quite a polar opposite approach, not until his very, very sort of latter years. I'm really keen to hear what's happening in your settings in terms of influencing the alignment of the practice, because that's the sweet spot, isn't it? That's where we've really got to get to really truly accelerate student outcomes. What's been happening at Waterloo, Karen?
Okay, so at Waterloo, of course, we have our tier one happening with everybody, and we've actually managed to coordinate our classrooms so that they are operating their structured literacy whole tier one at the same time, so that we can then cross group, so that we can, when we've done our diagnostic testing, we can then put the kids in different classrooms, and the teachers are teaching what they need to with that. The beauty of that is that there is fidelity and consistency of practice, because people have to communicate with each other about what's happening with students from other classes. So it's really brought a bit of collaboration to the party as well. And then with our tier two students, they have to take part in the tier one, but then there's a different time for them to take part in their tier two, and it's a reinforcement of what they've been doing with their tier one. So it's kind
So
of like a
it's
double
kind of
dip.
like an extra dosage.
Yep, extra dosage, double dip, and then for those, your 5%, 10%ers of the tier three, they're the ones that get the one-on-one with Chris and Anna and myself, and we still communicate with the classroom teacher to find out, what's happening and what level and where they've got them in their class, and then we go from there, and we have the concepts and things displayed in our offices, and the kids come in and they go, oh yes, we've been doing that, and they reflect upon it themselves, and they like to see where they're going. I mean, that one-on-one support for intervention as such is it's really specific and really explicit, and it's that icing on the cake, I think, for those students that come and are part of that.
And can I just ask, what does your data say? What does your data say about the difference that's being made for those students?
So by having our tier one practice aligned with, everybody being consistent, our students are coming up gradually, which means that we're having less students in our tier two, but then we've
Brilliant.
still got a tail of our tier three older students who'd missed that great tier one foundation, and that's kind of a target for Chris and I, is sort of those older students,
Yeah.
whereas Anna's been working with the younger ones. Yeah.
Awesome. Well done. Bec.
So this year we have been doing interventions with up to year three. And we're mostly doing tier two interventions. There's just a couple of children that are receiving tier three interventions. Our alignment is pretty good, I think. Our tier one instruction is pretty solid all the way across the school. Like, we've worked really hard on that over the last 5 years. The difference this year is that with our year two students that are receiving intervention, their intervention is actually with a limit trained teacher. So our tier two for our year twos and threes is with a limit trained teacher, and they're pulled out in small groups. And then their tier one instruction is also with a limit trained teacher.
Oh, wow.
So what we've done for our year twos is we have used the specialist platform as our content, and we've aligned that, and we teach the same thing across the week. Our year threes, just through how it worked out with teacher placement, is a little bit different. So they still receive the small group instruction from the limit trained teacher, but their classroom teacher is not limit trained. And so she's been using the school's platform. So they haven't been aligned. And we were just talking about it the other day, actually, that we've noticed that there's a difference between the year twos and the year threes. The year threes still have definitely made some really good progress, but we think that our year twos, their fluency at a word level, sentence level, and text level is probably just pepping the year threes at the post.
Wow.
And we were reflecting on that the other day, and we wondered whether
Yeah.
that was because of the alignment and the opportunities that they have to practice because it is
Yes.
aligned.
Yeah. Yeah.
So yeah, that was just
But,
something we were talking about.
also too, when those year threes were year ones, was the practice as honed in that tier one instruction as what it is this year for those year twos? You know, like I think that's another piece too, isn't it? Yeah, it's really, it's just so good for us to dig into all of those little pieces. And you're right, the specialist platform scope and sequence is so much more granular. It is so much more tailored than what is designed for tier one universal instruction.
Yeah.
Interesting.
So
Well
when
done.
when we formed our groups, it's kind of the same as Karen. So the year twos and year threes, when they're doing their spelling and their reading, they're essentially grouped together, like those that are in intervention, just so
Yeah.
that like it's easier for the intervention teacher and whoever's teaching reading and spelling in tier one to be able to communicate. And I think that's made a difference as well.
Awesome. Michelle, you shared with us that really your sort of time and energy has been focused on supporting to develop the tier one space. What do you see as a next step for you, maybe moving into 2026? What do you see as a next step in terms of implementing interventions?
Well, our goal at this stage, we were talking about it just recently. There's and one of the wee literacy leads in year 8. She's hugely passionate. It's really cool. She was actually asking about limit training too, which was neat. And we were talking about, we need to build the tier 2 into the classroom practice. And she's like, oh, yeah, da, da, da. So that's our next goal, is get tier 2 happening, and then hopefully that allows me to do what I was trained to do, and support this tier 3. But it's being in that position where the teachers are confident to go, sorry, that light there's a bit crazy, isn't it? Oh, there we go. And
the other one maybe. Oh, that's it.
Sorry. There we go. Is that better?
Yeah, we can see you now. That's great.
It was about developing the confidence of the teachers, but consistent practice as well. After a series of observations, there were little tweaks that we were able to do. And one of the real keen teacher, her name's Jess, she modelled a lesson at the classroom level for the teachers. And it was really neat because they were like, oh, yes. And so seeing good practice by a teacher and then developing your own practice with that. And then so you're then confident to turn around and go, oh, yeah, but I noticed so-and-so needs a bit more, or that sort of thing. They get good enough to go, oh, yep, I need to investigate that more. And that's our goal, is to get that tier 2 happening in the classroom. And then, obviously the grand plans that I can support the tier 3 students.
Yeah. One of the things that I often pick up in these chit chats is the other gifts that structured literacy have given us as a country that we're quite possibly not aware of. And one of those gifts you've just touched on, well, you kind of all touched on it in different ways, is actually the reflective practice that has evolved across the country within individual schools is exponential. And I just want to test this to see that my perspective is valid. My experience has been that teachers have become so open to being in each other's classrooms, this huge hunger and thirst for learning, and a real vulnerability in leaning into, after, of course, we've got past the I shouldn't have worn that colour. Is that really what my voice sounds like when we hear ourselves back on a video? All of those things. But the real vulnerability of leaning into actual true practice improvements of myself as an individual. I just really want to quickly ask about that and sort of fact check that. Has it been your experience in your settings that one of the great gifts of implementing structured literacy as a lever for change is how it's really, really helped us to lean into true practice improvement? I'm going to say right across the curriculum. I'm going to come to you first, Bec.
Yeah, I would agree with that actually, because especially when you're trying to embed something like across your school, like the coaching and observation component of that, I think is really, really huge. And, you know, being observed, you're always a little bit vulnerable, but from my experience, like people are really willing because they really care. And I think
Yes.
they know that this is going to help all our learners, not just our dyslexic learners, but all our learners. So they are embracing like what they need to do in order to make sure that that happens.
What about you, Karen, in that space?
Yes, for us, it was really important that the teachers had really great modelling, that they could go and observe somebody else before they were observed. And the other thing that we've done is that we've created a PLD team of not just leaders and management of the school, but members of our teams, different levels from the year ones, twos, threes and fours, fives and sixes, and they are actually the people that go in and do the observations. And it's really empowering for them to see, and a privilege actually to go into somebody else's classroom. But then the powerful bit about the feedback and then the reflection has been, it's been amazing. Like it's something that I think I'm going to speak on our behalf, is that our staff actually quite enjoy being observed and getting that critical feedback. And it's just made such an influence on our teaching practice. It's part of our professional growth cycle, so it's all kind of one big package, coaching, mentoring. Yeah, it's been really successful and really, I don't know how you would make change stick without doing that as part of your development.
Agreed. The thing is, though, we're not there yet, right? We've still, I think you'd all agree, we've got a long way to go. We've got a long way to go in individual schools. We've got a long way to go on so many levels. So I'm really interested to hear from you what opportunities you think remain for schools and leaders to continue to embed structured literacy, because we really, yes, we need this for all of our children, but for our dyslexic children, this is crucial for them that we get this right. So what recommendations or what opportunities do you think remain for schools and leaders to embed structured literacy? We could take your previous point around the coaching and the mentoring and the classroom observations, etc. Michelle, are there other things that you see as opportunities?
Definitely. I think probably with our leaders, with our school leaders, I think the bigger the school, obviously your leadership team sort of delegates their trust, and I mean, I know sometimes I feel almost overwhelmed. It's like, oh my God, it's such a responsibility that I've got to try and lead this in our school. And I guess if our leaders gave themselves permission to take the time to develop their knowledge and skills around this as well. I mean, I know they know it's important, and I know that because I know they trust me to do it. But I think there's a difference between hearing something and knowing it, right? And when you know, you know.
Yeah. So you think there's an opportunity for us to grow more knowledge across all stakeholders within a school, not just focusing, for example, on building foundation structured literacy, knowledge and practice at the foundation level and then kind of, the intervention level. What are your thoughts, Bec, in terms of opportunities?
Yeah, I agree with Michelle. For something to be really truly embedded, it kind of has to be like just what you do at the school,
Mm-hmm.
and nobody even really thinks about it, because if you come to Shotover Primary, we just do structured literacy, and this is how we do it. And I think, at the moment, there's lots of things happening in education at the moment, and probably the best thing we can do is to really ensure that our tier 1 instruction is totally solid across Aotearoa. As we said before, you can't tier 2 your way out of a tier 1 problem. And for that to happen, I think Michelle is right. Everybody needs to understand the why, because the why is the key, I think, to wanting to implement this stuff. Because when you know the why, then the rest kind of just flows on from that, I think. I think the structured literacy PLD that we're having at the moment has been really helpful. As I said, we're 5 years into our journey, but of course we've had teachers coming and going during that whole time. So we're finding that the structured literacy PLD, which we do with Learning Matters, of course, has been really helpful with consistency for us and building their knowledge for those that have joined us after or throughout our journey. So that's been a big thing. But as we said before, the coaching and observations and that part, I think, is massive to making something
liken it.
School.
I kind of liken what you're saying to a level of fitness. And consistency is key if you want to get fit to do something, right? You have to continue to go to the gym. You have to improve your. I don't go to the gym, just, doing that. But, I do know myself, though, to be healthy, I have to walk regularly. I need to go to Pilates. And I know that where I'm not consistent, if I miss a week or if I miss 2 weeks because I'm traveling, it's so much harder when I go back. And teaching and implementing change in particular in a teaching approach is no different. So consistency is key, and having that continuous rigor and constant improvement is a really important piece of this embedding of change. It's like we embed it, but just because we've embedded it and you say we've been doing this for 5 years, but we're still not there yet. Well, the reality is we will never be there. We will never be there because we need to continuously be monitoring and checking or is what we're doing ultimately making a difference? And is there something we could add or take away that would make more difference? We kind of have that moral purpose to be asking ourselves that question continuously. What about you, Karen? What opportunities do you see that we haven't touched on?
I guess one of the opportunities that I think that, alongside that consistency of tier 1 is making sure that we've got the resource allocation, the funding, the timetabling, and the staffing to cater for our tier 2 and tier 3 learners. I think it's really important that it'll be in an ideal world, it would be great if we would have, complete funding for somebody to just do intervention, whereas we don't have that at this time. And for us, we figure it out with some of the extra funding that we've had from the SLC, I think it is. But we also use some of because the DPs are released, that's how we're managing to do our intervention, but in an ideal world, more resourcing.
Yeah, I hear 2 parts to that. One part is initiative and innovation around how you make it happen when it's not there on a plate for you is probably my biggest takeaway. And I recently heard a conversation from a school principal as saying, actually, we're not going to apply for any of that staffing funding around structured literacy my understanding was they didn't believe in structured literacy, and they had a long way to go in terms of learning and understanding. So, okay, that you could say is what it is. On the flip side of that, I also had a conversation with a school principal who was well on their journey, but for whatever reason was not going to make the use of the portion, I'm going to say, that had been allocated potentially to their school. And when I asked the next question of, so what will you do to support your most vulnerable students, like those who are dyslexic and those who are your struggling readers, there was no response. And that's something that's really sat very, very, very uncomfortably with me for weeks now.
Mm-hmm.
So I want to share that from a place of, we have to find a way. Whether you agree with the structure, with whatever is happening, at the end of the day, we all came into this space of education, particularly this intervention gig, wanting to make a difference. And so, Karen, I really want to thank you for sharing that little piece and for obviously the innovation. And you are one of hundreds of schools across the country that are, innovating in different ways to ensure that intervention does take place for these children who are, in fact, our most vulnerable children right across the nation. Before we close off our chit chat, I'm going to ask you ladies to give one last piece of advice, one pearl of wisdom this Dyslexia Awareness Month for teachers across the nation. It could be for parents. It could be for the school leaders. What is one thing that you would like to say to others? I'm going to come to you first, Bec.
Probably my biggest piece of advice would be don't be too hard on yourself. I think when I started on this journey, I felt not very good for a while about what I had been doing. So when you know better, you do better. And just know that it's, part of a journey, and everyone's going to be in different places, and just to keep on going and do the best that you can and be kind to yourself.
Michelle.
I agree with Bec, and I was sitting there smiling because when you know better, you do better, and that's probably my single biggest thing. I think when you care about the people that you serve, then there is an accountability to do better. So in order to do better, you have to know better, and that's something that I'm really grateful for in meeting Ruth, that she started me on this journey and introduced me to you, and all the experience and knowledge that I've gained from that. I've learned more, so I'm able to do more, and that's it. So when you care, you learn more to do better, So yeah.
Karen.
Speaking of, our students who have dyslexia or possible dyslexia, it shouldn't be diagnosed as a specific learning disability, but a specific learning difference. And with that difference comes strengths, but also it also has to have the confidence building of that child, that students, and that they have their own understanding of their strengths and what their supports are, and also what it is about their dyslexia that makes them able to be the wonderful person that they are.
Amazing. Thank you so much to the three of you for the difference that you're making in your individual settings and your intervention lessons, and inspiring others and influencing the implementation of evidence-based structured literacy. It's been an absolute pleasure to meet with you today and to discuss something that is very dear to my heart. And I know from talking and meeting each one of you at different times over the past years, this is something that is really dear to your heart as well. Thank you, ladies.